And that's our new line of OS 26 devices, everyone. Alright, any questions? What are you going to do to fix Apple Intella? Next question. How about you? Have you fixed the bugs in iOS yet? Our software has always been the best in the industry. Next question. Will my iPhone XS Max be getting iOS 26? Oh, you're hilarious. No. What? Because you in particular have been constantly complaining about us and making us look bad. We want to penalize you by making sure your iPhone XS Max never makes a phone call again. And you will now be forced to buy a new iPhone from us once again. You're a monster! How cool is that? For your information, I already had predicted that my iPhone XS Max was on its last operating system. But just like with what they did to the iPhone X a couple of years ago, they left that on a fairly buggy iOS 16 and never gave it iOS 17, which is arguably more stable than its predecessor. And now, for the second iPhone discontinuation in a row, they left my personal favorite smartphone ever in the history of smartphones in the dust with what I am now arguing to be the single worst version of iOS I have ever had the displeasure of using, iOS 18. But heartbreak aside, I unfortunately still have some bad news to deliver about this event. I've stated before that Apple's focus is in the wrong place with iOS right now, as it currently is super unreliable. As I mentioned in the skit, my iPhone XS Max most of the time is completely unable to make a phone call without restarting it every single time. And from the looks of things, that list of bugs isn't getting any shorter. Instead of pulling out the mops and bug zappers, they chose to make what may be even more of a mess of their OS lineup. For years, too many enthusiasts were begging Apple to redesign the operating system. So, despite this being the absolute wrong time to do it, they redesigned it anyway. They call the new design Liquid Glass, which looks exactly what it sounds like. It apparently comes with a new icon pack that makes them transparent. Why in the actual would anyone use this? The tint already made it difficult to read the icons, but this is just worse. They did add some features that may be useful, such as call hold assist and call screening features. Though I tested this on my Pixel 6 Pro last year and found it wasn't as practical as I thought. iMessage group chats have a new polling function, which that I do think is cool, but it doesn't work with RCS to make the green bubbles feel more ashamed of themselves for not buying Apple's software flawed products. I will be honest with you, I already had massive problems I just needed to be addressed before I could get excited for new features. And I, the frustrated iOS 18 user, unfortunately didn't get my issues addressed. So I don't really have a good reason to be excited. I ultimately need my phone to work. And if the core of the device is broken, then none of the bells and whistles matter. And I'm not alone. This is why I titled my video Out of Touch. On the contrary, iPadOS does need a rethinking. While, yes, iPadOS 18 was filled with the same amount of bugs as iOS 18, maybe because they were based on the same platform, iPadOS already had a problematic lack of functionality to begin with for well over 7 years at this point. This time, we've got a lot of changes made to it, some for better and some for worse. They've updated the UI to be more macOS-like, including items like a new hidden menu bar that can be accessed by the new desktop-style precision cursor. I personally am not a fan of these changes, as they don't make the iPad Pro a better Pro tablet. But the new resizable windows, which I still don't understand why Stage Manager didn't bring this functionality when it launched in the first place, that is definitely a welcome change. I hear that files became a lot more macOS-like, which is a good thing, but I doubt they fixed the nerfed Pro apps. Many enthusiasts this would say that iPadOS got a lot of positive changes that they've been asking for years. But I'd argue that their version of a professional tablet is flawed and stuck in the old days of traditional desktop computing. Don't get me wrong, Apple's version of a Pro tablet has been flawed for years too, but just turning the iPad into a Mac isn't the answer. The answer lies in taking the functionality of a Mac and tailoring it into a UI that's optimized for touch, because Apple has never made anything that prevents my tablet from going to sleep randomly while I'm reading the script. Because Apple has never made anything that follows that criteria, nobody recognizes it and therefore can't ask Apple for more of it. And so we still have yet to see if it remains as unprofessional as it has been for years or not. And as for the rest of the lineup, honestly, there's nothing really to note to discuss with the rest of the OS lineup. watchOS 26 has the liquid glass look, tvOS 26 has the liquid glass look, though I'm not sure if it looks any different. visionOS 26 has wall widgets now, if anybody out there cares. And we now have macOS 26 Tahoe, featuring liquid glass and new colorful folder icons. If I didn't have my issues with bugs, I actually kind of like the new texture added to iOS. It's just I'm either jaded and blinded by my past experience with iOS 18's buggy nature, or Apple is just out of touch with their core user base that depends on these devices to get their shit done. Apple has been having a bunch of problems that they're tackling right now, some of which they've created themselves. While I don't blame them for the antitrust lawsuits and investors and shareholders being such morons, the iOS 18 bugs and the false advertising lawsuit due to over-marketing Apple BS, that's all on them. Honestly, their marketing department is kind of becoming a liability for them at this point. This whole OS 26 event feels like a giant distraction from what's really going on at Apple behind the scenes. While, yes, it is a tradition for Apple to hold their conference for developers at this time of year, I find it to be the wrong time to do so, as other massive issues. If Apple were interested more in stability and focused this developer event towards that goal, I'd probably be singing a different tune. But they've got a lot on their plate right now as is. Thanks for watching, and do us a favor and interact with the buttons below. Also, do me a favor and check out my Patreon page. I'd really appreciate that. This is the Random Alpha Gadgets, signing out.